Welcome to Why the Long Face? Two old friends lifting the lid on mental health over a beer with author and psychiatrist Paul Keedwell and business consultant and so-called comedian Ollie Turnbull.
Hello everybody and welcome to Why the Long Face with me, Oliver Turnbull, and as ever, Dr. Paul Keedwell. Hello Paul.
Hello there.
And as you know, season 4 is all about, well, I don't want to call it an experiment because it makes Ash sound like a bit of a lab rat. But it's,
I like experiment.
It's basically a deep dive into Ash's state of mind when he went through, I suppose you've got to call it an episode. And it's a sort of Ash's gift to the world, if you like, to see, what happens with somebody when they go through one of these problems, and maybe to help people and to realise, to sort of unpick some of the mystique and normalise, if you like, that this can happen to the most normal of people, because in many ways Ash is just a normal guy. So as we've said a few times, kudos to you for sharing this material with us. It's fascinating. Last week we had a clip of you with your life coach Pete, and you were the old Ash. You had a lot on your plate. Paul, there was, no real signs that anything was going wrong. And I think that's probably the reason that you've used that tape as a sort of introduction. Yep. But now we sort of move on a little bit. It's a few months later. I think it's about 4 or 5 months later. And maybe things aren't quite as comfortable in your mind as they could be. Paul, anything you want to add before we play the tape?
No, I think that's great introduction. Let's have a listen in now to the latest audio note.
Hi, I'm Ashy. For the last 12 years, I've said I used to have bipolar.
Hi, I'm Peter. I'm a life coach. Ash, I'm your coach. And we're skipping forward now 4 months in episode 2 from August last one into December. What's happened in the last 4 months for you?
So after that first audio note, end of August, I threw myself into this startup. So whereas Doorstep Gardener, as it had now become, had started as a delivery business, the vision that I and the team I started building together were working towards was using technology to personalise a garden to your style and space. So using a psychometric test combined with some use of artificial intelligence to predict and create a collection of plants that we deliver to you, which is very exciting. So in this 4 months, I'd really pushed on that. I'd got onto an artificial intelligence accelerator that I did remotely that was in Stockholm and built the first bit of this technology, and it worked. We got onto a Virgin startup accelerator incubator thing, and working with my wife, we worked out the proposition and we did lots of research. I started to build a team, some interns and also friends who came in to help on figuring out the brand and everything else. So there's a lot of audio notes in this 4 months that are me just keeping track of all of this, because it's a lot of learning. It's very exciting, really enjoyable. Obviously not getting paid anything, which is the challenge of startups, which builds some insecurity. But at this time, I'm looking ahead. When I was putting together these audio notes, because there's quite a lot of them, I was going to jump straight from the first episode clip, which is 7 months before the crash, to what started happening that caused the beginning of this high. And when I was going back through, I discovered this note from the end of December, which surprised me really, because it's indicative of the fact that I'm having a bit of a lull on the way. I would have always thought before that a high just becomes before a low, and it's that simple, but I think this shows otherwise.
I've had a few days over Christmas where I've sort of switched off, but not that kind of good switching off feeling, not that active kind of, I need a break. Oh, great, isn't it great to have a break? Just actually needing to sort of disconnect and being a bit disengaged, which always makes me a little fearful, to be honest, in terms of my bipolar. Especially as I forgot my meds, so I haven't been taking them for a few days. But then, logically, I guess I've just balanced out and not been worried or anxious about that. So I haven't been anxious. I've just been switched off, and it has all been a bit intense. And also Christmas, can be a bit intense in terms of socialising, right? So it's not like going on a summer holiday where you can lie on a sunbed. It requires quite a lot of you, so I think there is nothing wrong with that. But I've woken up this morning with my brain starting to want to work again for my sins, just thinking through things to be done. There's a little underriding thing that keeps popping up around believing in myself and my ability to bring this investment in. I think it's because I've never done it before and there's so much uncertainty in it. And now as we go into January, these things start to cross over, so I'm going to be delayed on developing if I don't have the money in place. But realistically, I've got a few weeks of work to do with Shebin before we can get going anyway, and that doesn't cost anything. There's work I can be doing with Laura, there's work I can be doing with Claire, there's loads of stuff that I can still be moving forward with without money in the bank.
So Ash, the main thing that stands out to me is a distinct difference in your energy, or at least what I perceive to be your energy. Is it the 4 months difference? Is it the fact it was 9 a.m. when you recorded this?
I think I'm just in bed. And it's Christmas, right? I'm in my parents-in-law's house. It's a busy house. I'm probably keeping my voice down.
Right.
My main observation, hopefully everyone will hear from going through these, is there's not a huge difference between a very low state and a higher state in terms of how I sound. I used to think when I was really low in my 20s that you could see it, that people could see it, because I felt it so strongly. And then I realised I was looking back at some photos and I was like, you can't. I can, sort of think I can. I might have been questioning myself, but externally it wasn't apparent to people. So, yeah, I think you could read too much into... right, we wake up, we're early in the morning, we're a bit quieter, a bit calmer. We're later in the day, we're kind of a bit excited because we've just done some sport. So, yeah, no, this is just I'm in bed.
Right.
Waking up.
So you talked a little bit about, a couple of things I see related here, which is disconnect, disengaged, and fear. How would you sort of summarise where you're at in that December with those things?
Yeah, I think things are catching up with me. I've made decisions. I mean, at the beginning of this episode, I talked about how exciting it was. Christmas is a kind of natural stopping point, right? Everything closes, Yep. You're at home, you're with your parents-in-law, much as I love them. It can be a bit stressful because everyone's got expectations. And so I think I've been going at a speed, but not too high or anything, just a lot going on. And I'm just trying to process a bit at this time, and I'm just a bit disengaged. It's interesting that I say, a bit switched off, but not good switched off. And I think that is maybe comes onto the word fear, because I've been on holidays before where I'm like, God, I needed this holiday. And it's just glorious being able to stop. You're like, I just need this break. But I think in here, it's the actual stopping that's making me realise, hold on a minute. I'm going after this investment. Time's starting to compress a bit because there was a tax incentive I was going after and it hadn't happened yet. And if I hadn't got that money in by mid-January, I wasn't going to be able to build what I was talking about. So there's a bit of stress in there, but I haven't quite got into the headspace of the implications yet, but I think I'm aware of it. And so, again, could I have stopped myself here in some way? Or could this have been picked up on?
Yeah.
I mean, from you and I talking, it fascinates me that you and I were talking and this episode still happened. So it's not that by being fully aware you can stop these things from happening. So then do you limit your life so you don't have the risk of having a high and a low? I tried that in my 20s for a year. I signed on the dole. I got a housing benefit, so I had a flat. I went back to study at night school. All calm, right? Got night school, I got a place to live, I got a roof over my head, and I didn't do anything for like a year that I thought would in any way affect my mental health. And it worked, but it was incredibly boring.
So Ash, I'm listening to this and I'm aware we've been coaching together for 6 months and you still had a dip.
Yeah.
And I'm a little nervous here, going like I'm on a podcast, and the coach didn't. I mean, one of the interesting things of the coach, right? We don't rescue. We actually call out drama, triangles, and patterns, but we don't rescue. But
Yeah.
it is interesting as I sit here going, could have I done more? Like, So, what's your thinking?
Yeah, I mean, my reflection, despite how challenging this has been, is that at the end of the day, this last episode has been, I believe, a very positive thing in my life. It surprised me that COVID happened. I got rid of my staff. I closed my office that I'd had for 5 years. I sold all my kit. I moved countries. I set up a startup. And through all of this, nothing. No dramatic emotion, no fear, no worry, just moving ahead with positivity. And I've been doing that for nearly 2 years. And that's odd. That's odd not to have processed that more. And I think what's happened here is actually, I've used the word recalibration. I've used it with honesty to not say depression to a lot of people, because it wasn't actually that long a period. So I realised I'd talked to a few people that hadn't heard from me, and I'd say, just, a bit of burnout, just been recalibrating. But honestly, it has been that. I think I had this 2 years of moving forward. I paused. I decided I was going to focus my energy into this startup. We've heard on this audio that I'm kind of just realising there's some implications here. And it's been a journey, and we'll come on to it in future episodes, but the low was really challenging this time, because the last time I had a low, I was in my 20s. I didn't really know what I was doing with myself. I had no responsibilities. I already said that one of the times I signed on the dole and I had a roof over my head. So there was little to kind of worry about other than myself. Whereas now I've got a 6-year-old, I'm living in another country, I'm being depended on financially, and processing all of that was much more challenging, but has been a really good thing. So I look forward to exploring that on future episodes, because I think depression is often not viewed in that way. Right. How can it possibly be positive? But I see it as positive. And through working together with you, now what's happening is really fascinating, because I'm being able to take all of those learnings from having gone through this episode with more tools, with the meditation and the breath work and working with you. So I've got through it far quicker than I could have imagined, and I'm coming out the back of it with a much clearer sense of who I am as a person and what I want from life.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Great. Yeah. Awesome. What do you want in life?
Yeah, what do I want to like? I don't want a flat life.
Yeah, right.
I think that's one of the things with going back to when I was first diagnosed. It's this assumption that there are highs and lows, and those need to be controlled. Everyone in the whole planet has issues with their mental health, grief, sadness, extremes of joy. We're all dealing with stuff going on in our brains. And so I want to live a life which has excitement. There's a poster on the wall in our kitchen, Helen Keller quote, "Life without an adventure is nothing." I can't remember the phrase. It's something like that. Leading an adventurous life, that's what it's all about. And I really believe strongly that everyone should be open to that and shouldn't feel limited by any health condition.
Yeah. I think one of the things I've come across as a constant theme is that it's about being able to process our emotions as they happen, to be able to let them move through with agency and ownership.
Yeah, which is maybe in the throngs or the throw of a high where you're out of control.
Right.
That becomes more challenging.
Yep.
Which I'm sure we'll come on to.
And is it fair to say then when you're in a dip that then you sort of get a bit more stuck in the emotion rather than letting it move through?
Yeah, I mean, I was saying to you today that recently, just very recently, I've got a little bit tired of the navel gazing. So the low is exhausting.
Yeah.
Because physically you are not functioning, and externally it looks like you're lazy or that you can't do things and you're always falling asleep. But internally in the head, it's just constant spinning thoughts, trying to process what's going on, feeling probably pretty crap about yourselves, trying to fix stuff, even though what I realise now is the only thing you can do in that state is just keep calm. I learned that when I was younger with this neuroscientist, Liz Miller. The thing you should be aiming for, whether you're high or low, is a calm state. And to sit with that and not to try and fix things, just give it time, eat well, exercise, the usual things everyone always says, which I know are so hard to hear when you're in a low place. And then when you're getting back to things, start tackling what am I going to do next. Whereas for me, I couldn't help myself diving into those thoughts, but now I've been able to fuel them into some positive next steps.
Wow. Okay. So that's a slightly different tone. Again, Ash is Ash. He's still our mate, and there's nothing's really changed. But we're talking about medication a little bit now, and it feels like the brain is correcting after a period of hard work, which is not Ash's words, but how it feels. And there's a lot more introspection, I think, from my perspective, Paul. I don't know, as a clinician, what do you read from what Ash is saying to Pete?
I'm reading that there's some disappointment, I suppose, insofar as you closed down one company, started another, and then the next company as well perhaps didn't have the longevity that you wanted. There's some anxiety creeping in, isn't there, about your future? Perhaps some self-doubt. And I think you're being very brave, aren't you? You're sort of stepping into the unknown a bit, and you're wanting to be ambitious. You're wanting to make a success of something, and it's the first time you mentioned Liz Miller as well, which is I could talk quite a bit about her, but she was someone. She wrote a book called Mind Mapping in 2009, I think it was, some time ago anyway. Mood mapping, yeah. And because she famously suffered from bipolar disorder, or suffers from, but was sectioned, wasn't she, on a number of occasions, and admitted to hospital, and it was quite severe. And she wrote this book, which is essentially, I think, helping people to map their moods, but with energy on one axis and how you feel on another axis.
Yep.
Because they can be, you can actually feel energized but not feel right in yourself, or you can feel right in yourself but not energized. The two things can vary independently at things, and perhaps that's relevant to this little segment. What do you think, Ash?
Yeah, I mean, Liz was very, very significant to me in my 20s. She hosted meetups in her house with like 4 or 5 of us to kind of talk through these things, and her idea of that you've got an active state, a calm state, a high state and a low state, where I got to in my 20s, and I think it was instrumental in me getting on top of not having issues with my mental health, was this calm state. Whether you're high or you're low, it's about getting to a calm state. And so now at sort of 40 years old, 42 years old, doing meditation and breath work and body scan, all this stuff are all tools to get into a calm state. And I think you can hear that in these audio notes. Even though here there's anxieties creeping in, there's some stress, I'm still getting calm in that moment. So yeah, Liz was, and her ideas, very instrumental. And it also interests me at this point that, I mean, I said to both of you when I approached you, I would have said at this point that I used to have bipolar, and yet it's implicit to me that something is happening, and the worry triggers me to mention, oh shit, I haven't taken my medication for a few days. Because to be clear, I have taken what I was advised to take every single day for the last, 20. I've never questioned taking medication. Even though I basically in my head thought I don't have this anymore, I still carried on taking it. I did reduce with my psychiatrist the dose significantly, but it interests me at this point that I mentioned meds and I mentioned bipolar, because I wasn't thinking about it more broadly, but in a reflective state I was.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad you did mention meds, because Liz Miller was particularly controversial insofar as she was suggesting that bipolar disorder, in her opinion, could be managed without medication. I mean, maybe that was the route for her, and she had her own experience with psychiatry, which was not great. We don't know, of course, how well that has turned out for her in the long run, but the point is that everybody's different. And I think, Ash, you've always, and I think this is right, you've you know, for most people, you've accepted that medication is part of the management of it, but you've used other techniques as well to enhance that, because medications are not perfect, are they? They're not necessarily sufficient. I'm interested to know, though, when did you reduce the dose drastically of the meds? Not that I'm saying this is necessarily relevant to these episodes.
Yeah, no. I think it's interesting. I mentioned medication on this coming up. So this is going back to my 20s. I managed to use various different approaches to get on top of my mental health, but I was still unable to lead a productive life, or an ambitious life as I saw it. And so I think we talked at the time, and I said, where should I go for someone that can kind of tune the Ferrari, right? I don't just want to be like a car that drives along. I want to tune this. And so I went to see Sue Thompson at the Priory, and my question to her was, you know, based on research and evidence, and she tweaked one of my medications, and then I worked with her over a number of years. And in fact, the reduction of the dose, first of all, of course, there's what a clinician advises you to do with medication, but also you do have a sense within yourself. I felt heavy with the medication that I was taking, and I take, I think, an eighth less than I took when I first started taking medication. So that was a conversation with my psychiatrist. And also, my wife came with me to an appointment because we realised that my emotional responsiveness was muted. And we talked with her about... Yeah, so that was a bit to do with the reduction as well. So...
But there was more there was a particular medication, I think, that was helpful for you, wasn't there? And maybe there was a combination used for some time. But anyway, it was resolved. But in any case, there wasn't a drop in or a drastic change in medication before this series of episodes that we're dealing with in this podcast. Or was there? Or was that some time before?
No, interestingly, I've been on a completely steady, and with transparency, I've been on a completely steady dose of my medication, also with transparency, missing occasionally days here or there, or I'd go away for a weekend and realise I'd left my, stuff like that happening. The only time I felt it necessary and a bit sort of scared and a bit like I needed the medications more was when I crashed. And I was aware that one of the medications, and I'm purposely not saying the names of the specific medications because I know everyone's different, but one of them really helped stop me having dramatic lows. And so my natural inclination was, I need more of these things because I'm dropping and I don't want to drop anymore. And that was sort of done out of fear. But then but literally in the last 10 years or 5 years, maybe I haven't changed anything about the medication I take.
Yeah. So, going through this, then, can you say? I mean, how were you feeling? Do you think at this time, if you could describe your feeling, but also your energy levels? So to use the kind of these two dimensions.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned in the recording with Pete, I'd forgotten about this. I remember that Justine, my wife, said that I was a bit of a pain at Christmas and that she wasn't very happy. I remember being a bit tired at the time and then throwing myself back into it in January. So I'm basing this on hearing myself rather than what I remember, if you know what I mean, because, as I say, I don't remember it as this. But when I hear myself talking there, I can, you've said it, I can hear self-doubt coming in. I think I can hear this creeping sense of this might not work and how exposed does that leave me. But I think I know what happened after this was I went away on holiday I was aware of that during this recording, actually, because of COVID, they were cancelling all the flights, and I was like, I knew I needed a holiday, and I really didn't want to lose this ski holiday. I love to ski. Anyway, we managed to get out there, and I threw myself into work. It was like I had a week of a holiday, and then I stepped up the energy even further. So I quelled any form of self-doubt and motored ahead. I wrapped it up, I guess, these feelings.
Okay. I mean, sometimes these sorts of feelings are motivating, aren't they? I mean, let's not pathologise them. Sometimes, a bit of anxiety, a bit of stress, nervous anticipation can help us perform better and drive us on. So I'm loath to say, oh, look, we can clearly see the signs here. We can see the cracks in the facade. I'm loath to do that, really. At this stage. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I must say I didn't. Yeah, no, I must say I was similar. You can analyse too much, can't you? Because we know what happens next, if you like. What I'm finding absolutely fascinating is the way that both Pete and Paul have a very nice bedside manner in the way that they're in a very compassionate way, just probing away at you. Paul isn't trying to diagnose. Pete isn't trying to fix you. But they do seem to be coming from different angles, which I find really fascinating. And I find it very much in parallel with what you're saying about psychiatry, which, of course, what Paul is, which leads to medication in some instances. And like we said in the podcast in season 1, Paul, medication works for some people and doesn't for others. And so beware of anybody saying the pill will fix you, and also beware of anybody telling you medications will mess you up, because neither are true. It's different for other people. But this mixture of help this cocktail, if you like, actually, that you keep talking about, from the psychiatric, which is done in a very gentle way by Dr. Paul, to this sort of life coaching. And I like the way that Pete sort of probes you with gentle questions. Have you considered this? Have you thought about that, rather than trying to find solutions? And then the other thing that I pick up very strongly from the tape is when you talk about the fact that, again, it's not your words, I'm putting it in my words, but you are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions. Emotions are just a thing that happens to you, and that isn't and that doesn't define you. But it's interesting. I don't want to overanalyze. You're still you, for sure. Yeah. But I'm sort of quite looking forward to what happens next.
Yeah, which is a great place to finish this particular episode, isn't it? And tune in next week to see what happens next.
Oh, wow. This is a cliffhanger. We maybe need the EastEnders theme tune. Yeah. I mean, Ash, I think maybe you should do what you did last time. Just give us a little teaser of what might happen next time.
Yeah. I mean, I like the fact we're laughing about this, right? I just want to make one point, which is, we all know that something's going to happen. I know that something's going to happen, and I'm only a few months after, and I'm able to laugh about it. Right, I think there's a bit of tragic comedy in this.
Well, I mean, my hats off to you, and don't take our lightness as taking this lightly. We know exactly the misery that's involved, and I know you don't. But it's important for people to understand that this isn't a joke.
Yes.
But there is levity to be had, and it's a very good point you make, actually.
It's also about not painting you as a victim, really.
Exactly.
You might have been a casualty of the illness for a while, but
yes.
You've come through it. You're a survivor. There were good and bad things about bipolar, and I think that phrase "casualty" rather than "victim" is a Liz Miller phrase, actually.
I definitely feel that this experience has been a massive positive, and I think that's really important.
Right.
Like, we're all on a journey of learning about ourselves, and if you have a mental health condition, that's the same thing. It's not that these episodes are just things getting in the way of you living your life. They're part of your life, and I feel that having had this experience this time, I understand myself better. So in terms of what comes next, just to give a tease, I think it's going to be another gap of time, and I think we start to get more closely into what triggered the high. So this is context, really, these first 2 episodes. The next one we step into, okay, this is 16-hour days every day, getting up at 7 in the morning, unable to switch off, and how that escalates.
Great summary. We'll see you next time, gentlemen, as
Thank
ever.
you. Thanks, fellas.
Thank you.
See you for episode 3. Bye for now.